Good evening and welcome to installment 2 of Choose Your Own Adventure, Doctor Who Mission to Venus. And we were introduced to the Doctor and his companion Perry, and you were in the TARDIS, your time and space travel machine that looks like a telephone box, and you have landed on a spaceship somewhere in space and time. And there are some very disturbing plants or plant-like things in jars. And you were just about to smash one of the jars with an axe when a sailor walked in. And our options were to befriend the sailor, smash the jar, or decide to wait and see. And all of you are shy and have not commented or sent me an email on where we'd like to read next. So I'd love to have you do that this time. But we're going to pick one of these 3 sheets of paper and see what we're going to do. And, oh, that's hard to read. But it says sailor. So we're going to befriend the sailor and see where this adventure takes us next. You stared back for a moment, then lowered the axe and put it to one side. You held a hand before you. We are friends. We mean you no harm. He put down the cylinder and turned his bright blue eyes back to you. Who are you? You introduced yourselves, and he hesitated in caution, then came forward. And how did you get here? That's not important, the doctor said. The question is, where are we? You're on the spaceship Medusa. The doctor nodded. I thought so. And where are we heading? Nowhere. Nowhere, the doctor stared at him blankly. Exactly, the sailor said. This is more of a city than a ship. We've got all we need to exist in space indefinitely. Most of the food is grown hydroponically, and there are these. You noticed that he flinched when he indicated the plants. There was something wrong here. He was a burly man with an open face and red hair, not the sort to be easily cowed. Yet he kept his gaze away from the jars. Why should that be? Certainly their appearance had nothing to commend it, but they were contained and apparently safe. What are these plants? You asked. Lichen, he said, still not looking at them. And their purpose? The doctor asked. Food for the Zan. I knew you had to be right, Perry said to the doctor. She turned back to the sailor. But what sort of people are the Zan if they eat muck like that? They aren't people, the sailor said. He drew nearer and lowered his voice. They look physically like us, but they aren't like us in any other way. I'll tell you what happened. He rubbed a hand across his forehead and drew in his breath. I used to live in a tiny village called Brightford. In Hampshire, that was. I ran a garage. There wasn't a lot of business, but it was enough to keep us ticking over, and it was a good life. Everybody knew everybody else, and if you had any problems, there was always somebody ready to help. In fact, when I look back now, I can see that we didn't know how happy we were. We thought it was dull and routine, but there's a lot to be said for that. We can see it now that it's too late. See? One night, the whole area was lit up by a brilliant light in the sky above us. We couldn't make out what it was at first. We thought it might be a helicopter shining its searchlights on us. But then it faded a bit, and we saw this disc-shaped thing coming down onto the common. Big it was, and we figured that what we were seeing was a flying saucer. Well, for all I know, that's what it was. But it didn't mean us any good, I can tell you. The next thing we knew is that armed men poured out of it and surrounded those of us who were watching. Then others went into every house and forced the people out. It was terrible to see. Some of them were elderly and weak, but they had to come just the same. One of the things the Zan don't know anything about is mercy. And they looked frightened enough, God knows, in their black uniforms and metal headpieces. Mrs. Forbes died of a heart attack the moment they burst in on her, poor old thing. But at least she didn't have to face up to what we do now. There's that to be said for her. And what is it that you have to face up to? You asked. But the sailor ignored you. We were herded aboard, then brought up to this vessel, he went on. Then we sailed back into space, again, learned our fate. They put us all into these uniforms and made us do the menial tasks, like I look after feeding the legion. Oh, he shuddered again. They treat us well and keep us fed, but there's always a catch, isn't there? What? The doctor said coldly. The sailor licked his lips nervously. We're food for the legion. There aren't many of us left now. He looked sardonically at the group. They'll be glad to see you, believe me. You were chilled, and Perry gasped. Yet the sailor went on. And don't think of escape. We're watched all the time, and when we aren't working, we're locked in cells. Believe me, it's hopeless. You could see that it was. Using all the eloquence you could muster, you persuaded the doctor to return you all to the TARDIS, the sailor with you. Off you went again into time and space, and this was one adventure you didn't have. The sailor simply wanted to desert, and you have inadvertently helped him. Don't believe anything you hear. Try again. Go back to 4. All right. That's our installment for tonight. There's no voting tonight, I guess. But we will pick up with section 4 tomorrow at 11 a.m. And hopefully we'll have some people join us. And please, on Facebook or via email, send me your vote for where we go next. We'll see you at 11 tomorrow.